Hey everyone, it's your instructor here, Lucas Myers. Hope you are having a wonderful day. This is your intro video to the first module for the endocrine system, which is generally week 1 in the Biology 242 course. So on your screen here, you probably can see me talking to you, and you can see my screen share. That is the module in Canvas that shows Endocrine System Chapter 17. So for your endocrine system module, and I apologize for the squeaky chair, we have first a page that basically this video is on, but that talks about learning objectives that you will cover in this quarter. So we're going to open that up. So this talks about the endocrine system, what we're going to cover, and it also has a link to medical terminology for the endocrine system. So I wanted to start providing that information in this course because a lot of times terminology can be the largest barrier to learning in science. It's considered its own language in terms of the learning aspect of how many new words you have to actually absorb and learn. Things to pay attention to are your root words, okay? Kind of what are those base words that are found in the terms, and then your prefixes and suffixes. Those tell you a lot. For example, if we look at the word endocrine, okay? Endo right away tells us within, okay? So endocrine refers to the fact that we are referring to hormones or molecules that are being secreted within the body versus exocrine, which would be secreted out of the body, okay? There's going to be other words that you have to pick up on and learn. So pay attention to the prefix and suffixes. This medical terminology for the endocrine system link is a great page that goes through terminology, but also has concepts and information in it. So this is a great link to go through and study and take notes on, and it should help you with the information, and reach out to me. There's also some really good tools in there for learning the terminology in terms of just some games that you can play for matching terms together. Okay, so pay attention to terminology. You know, if you run into words you don't know, write them down. Pay attention to the words you don't know and come back and learn them. You know, go to the site, find them, email me, chat with me, whatever. Come into my, check in with me on Zoom, and we can get it figured out. All right, learning outcomes. Okay, these are the main ones you're going to be focusing on for endocrine system. Use these as a tool for when you are watching the videos, when you're reading, and you want to make sure you take notes. Kind of the key things to know is what I want to look for in endocrine system is that you know the process. Okay, what causes certain hormones to be released? What do those hormones do? And how can those things go awry? Okay, so for example, if we were to look at digestive system, just because diabetes is a common one, right? Pancreas is a endocrine gland. It's also an exocrine gland, but it's an endocrine gland that operates on its own. It doesn't need necessarily the brain to tell it what to do. So it senses the blood sugar and then secretes glucagon or insulin on its own. So it's the rise or fall in blood sugar that stimulates the pancreas, which is the processing center, to release the insulin or the glucagon. And then based on their release, there are different effects, okay? And so the effectors are different, depends on which hormone's released and what's going on. But we're either going to be, taking sugar out of the blood, which is, allowing it to get into cells or storing it in the liver, which is what your insulin's going to do. Or you could be using glucagon and increasing blood sugar. So there's a variety of things that will occur, but you need to understand those processes, not just memorize, oh, insulin does this. Understand the full process. Okay, I'm a very process-oriented teacher. I want you to know the loops. And then I want you to know where things can go awry and how to explain that. Okay? Or if I don't give you a perfect situation, if I just say, hey, someone's getting ready to exercise, what's the pancreas going to do? Is the pancreas going to release insulin or glucagon? And you got to be able to critically analyze that. So make sure you're really focusing on those things as you work through these learning outcomes. So this is the Welcome to the Endocrine System and Explain This Module page. All right, there'll be one of those for every module as you get into it here. All right, so we dive into the rest of the endocrine system here, week 1. All right, you'll see there's some study tools and exam resources. I probably should change. That's not really, you don't really have true exams, but there's some study resources there for you to take a look at. And then you have the week 1 sequence of activities and readings. This is where you really want to dive in and begin. So I have the reading there, what sections you're supposed to read. Again, use the learning outcomes, or you can use the study guide right here / worksheet. As you read through that, you can answer the questions in the worksheet. You can take notes on the study guide. Review the hormone chart. This hormone chart's really helpful because it basically gives you the nuts and bolts, the definition type version of what hormones do, what stimulates them and what they cause. And it doesn't give you the perfect process like I was telling you, but it's a good kind of beginning point. Then you have 2 videos by Crash Course on the endocrine system that you should watch here, part 1 and part 2, that discusses the endocrine system. Now, Khan Academy is another great place to go for the endocrine system, and you can check those out. And there's other ones online that are fantastic. And I have some other optional ones up here in the exam resources. Okay, I use the Crash Course ones because they fit the universal design for learning in terms of the length of the videos. And you can, Hank, who does most of these, does talk fast, but they're well animated, they're engaging, so you can pause, rewind them. You can also on YouTube slow videos down. So you can change the frame speed and make them slower, and he can talk slower. So pay attention to that as well. The endocrine hormone activity number 1. If you've taken Biology 241 with me, you know that some of these assignments aren't worth points initially. You get the points for them by completing the self-evaluation quiz, which is where you check your answers, get more feedback from me built into the quizzes. I've purposely designed these quizzes that have feedback and extra resources for you and give you the points for your assignment. This way you get that immediate feedback right away, and you're not waiting 3 days for me to get back to you and then forget to check your feedback. So this gets rid of that dead space. This is going to have you look at the hypothalamus and pituitary gland and what they do. And so when we talk about the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, we have our lovely brain that I have made a sagittal cut into. All right, so this is the sagittal view of the brain. And we can see here, this is our pituitary gland, this big ball here. Not to be confused with the pineal gland on the backside. Pineal gland has to do with basically your awake and sleeping rhythms, cycles. It produces melatonin. But pituitary gland does most of the work when it comes to the secreting for the body. And the thing that controls the pituitary gland is the hypothalamus, which is the region right in here. So hypothalamic region, pituitary gland, they're connected, okay, via this infundibular stalk, okay? And there's 2 sides of the pituitary gland. There's anterior and posterior you're going to learn about. Anterior produces its own hormones that are triggered by stimulating, or they're stopped by inhibiting hormones secreted by the hypothalamus. But then the posterior pituitary has a storage site for the hypothalamus to release hormones it produces. Okay, and there's a couple main ones that it produces there that you'll learn about. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to that. And in this activity, hormone activity number 1, you're going to learn about that relationship. You're also going to learn about the hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is related to stress response. Okay, and you'll get into looking at this is the kidney. We're not going to talk about this till much later in the quarter. But you're going to, in the HPA, you're going to learn about the adrenal gland, okay, which is this fatty-looking tissue hat on top of the kidney. And it literally sits like that right on top of the kidney in the cadaver and in the human body as well. And you can see that you have a medulla region and a cortical or cortex region, okay? And one of those, I'm not going to give you all that information yet. You'll learn in the videos. But the outer layer is more connected with your corticosteroids, okay, things like cortisol and aldosterone, okay, and your medulla is related to your stress. I shouldn't say stress because cortisol is a stress-related hormone, but related to releasing your epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline type hormones, Okay, so you'll learn about that when you dive into the endocrine system more, but those are things you're going to be talking about in your first endocrine hormone activity number 1. Okay, and all the instructions are in there, and then it tells you you're going to have to complete the self-evaluation quiz. Okay, so again, you won't turn in the activity itself. You'll do the quiz, which allows you to check your answers and get your points. And there are quiz type questions in these self-evaluation quizzes at times as well. Now, you can easily just not do the activity and take the self-evaluation quiz and get your points. But that won't do you a lot of good when it comes to completing the assessments and case studies, because you will be lost in the content. These activities are designed to help you learn the information I want you to learn and know by the end of the quarter. So they're not busy work. It's meant to be guided learning towards a goal. Okay, and that's my method. So don't think of them as busy work. Do them. It will help you in the learning. If you want to be knowledgeable in these areas, do those. If not, you're not going to do well on the team assessments, which will be in week 2. Most modules. So we're looking at week 1 endocrine system. Most modules are going to be 2 to 3 weeks long. Till we get later in the quarter, there's a couple 1-weekers. But some of these harder units, I give you a little more time. So you don't have any assessments yet in this first week. At the end of week 2, you'll have your first case study assessment. Now, the other thing in week 1 here with the endocrine system you need to pay attention to is the team case study discussion. You've been put into teams. Start working on that. There are clear directions in that discussion for what you need to do. Okay, you do not need to. One thing that always gets asked is, do we need to type up our final answers and post in the discussion? No, it's meant to be a discussion. I will be able to look through and see where you're at. So don't feel like you have to type up a final document. Your team just needs to come to an agreement in the discussion on the information and what you believe as a team based on what you've been given. Okay, so make sure you look through this. Work hard, dive right into it here week 1. You only have 1 assignment due at the end of this week, really, besides the intro assignments. But make sure you get going, because it'll catch up to you when you get into week 2, because there's a lot more. So I try to be a little nicer in week 1, but week 2 is jam-packed, so don't procrastinate on that first assignment. Get on that as early as you can and get it completed. Hope you have a wonderful first week of the quarter. And feel free to contact me, as always, in my Zoom, Canvas chat, discussions, or by email. Hope you have a wonderful quarter, and we will see you again.